Hey guys, it's Ashley. I'm going to just be talking about a few books that I have really been enjoying lately, or have enjoyed in the past, like a lot. I'm going to talk about a book that I'm reading right now, but I've actually already read this book, and it's called The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Chbosky. It's about a kid named Charlie, and he's a freshman in high school, and he goes through all this stuff. Like, in the beginning, he talks about how his best friend Michael committed suicide, and he talks about how he's struggling with dealing with that, and he talks about what he does to deal with his emotions and what he does to just move on with his life. And it goes through a bunch of like things that happened during his life. And if you don't know what a wallflower is, it is someone who kind of just sits in the back and watches people do things. And that's exactly what he is. He sits and watches people. Like, say you're at a dance. This does happen, by the way. Say you're at a school dance, like you're at homecoming. And there's just someone kind of just sitting there watching everyone dance and have a good time. That's him. That's how Charlie is. And this is in a really cool format. I had never read anything in this kind of format that was not it's not diary form. It's in letter form, like he's sending letters to someone called a friend. It's like, I'll show you. It says, "Dear friend." See, it starts with, every letter starts with "Dear friend" and ends with "Love Charlie." Love always Charlie, sorry. And it's based in the early 90s. 91 actually. And it's just really good. It goes through it goes through his experiences with sex, drugs and alcohol, things in media like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and just kind of like becoming an adult, like growing up and dealing with things that everyone has to deal with. And he does it in a different kind of sort of way. He does things in a different sort of way. In a different way. And it's just really interesting, and this actually ties into the book. I kind of never really realized that, but it does. It ties into the book more than I thought it did. You'll find out. It's just really interesting, and it touches on a lot of different subjects like homosexuality and I don't know. It just touches on a lot of things, and I don't want to give too many things away. But yeah. So really enjoyed this book. This is actually my favorite book for like 5 years. Yeah. I originally read this when I was like in 5th grade, and I appreciated it more then because I was curious about the same things that he was curious about. I felt what he was going through. Like, I was curious. I didn't know too much about sex, drugs, alcohol, or even the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I had no idea about this stuff in 5th grade. I was so young and naive, and so is he in this book. You will feel his pain through all of this. So I think that everyone should read this. It says soon to be a major motion picture starring Logan Lerman and Emma Watson. So I'm really excited to see that. I will definitely be watching it. So that's that. Okay, so a book that I read prior to this book it's called Uglies by Westerfeld, and it's actually a series. The first one is Uglies, second one is Pretties, and then Specials and Extras. So I really enjoyed this. It's about a girl named Tally who is about to turn 16, and when you turn 16 in this futuristic world, you have an operation that makes you a pretty. And when you're a pretty, you have the freedom to do basically whatever you want. And when you're an ugly, you play ugly tricks or things like that. And It's basically you rebelling against becoming a pretty or anything like that. That actually has nothing to do with anything with it. But Tally just doesn't. At first, she really wants to become a pretty, and then she meets this girl named Shay, who doesn't want to become a pretty, and she tries to convince Tally to not become a pretty, and in this process of convincing Tally to not become a pretty, Tally figures out things about the pretty world that, like, is not good. Like, it says in the back, Tally learns about a whole new side of the pretty world, and it isn't very pretty. Which is totally true. Like, if you read this, you'll find out what is really going on, and you will be like, what the hell? Like, why? Why? Why would you want that? But, Tally is kind of like in between on these things. Like, she has her best friend in the whole world. His name is Paris. He already became a pretty. He already turned 16 and became a pretty and left her in Uglieville. But she has promised him to not do anything to... There is like a fuzz. Has promised him that she won't do anything that will make her stay in Ugly. So she finds out all this stuff about becoming a pretty and the world of the pretties. And she doesn't know if she wants to become one, but she's promised him, and when you make a promise, you don't back out of it. You have to keep the promise. So I don't know. I just think it's really good, and I feel like I'm giving away everything in this. So I'll just stop talking now and move on to the next book. And the next book is The Help. Such a good book. Like, I didn't appreciate the movie because I read this. Like, there's so much more detail and so much better, like, such a better storyline than the movie. Like, the movie is the storyline, essentially. But they leave out so much information that it makes it not that great of a movie. I know I'm going to get so much hate for saying that, just for saying that The Help wasn't that great of a movie. That's because you didn't read the book. I did enjoy the movie. I liked the movie. But I loved the book. Liked the movie, loved the book. Like, I can't even tell you. Like, there's so much that they left out of the movie that was in the book that it makes it not that great of a movie. Whew, I feel like I'm talking a million miles an hour. I'm probably talking really, really slow, though. Anyway, if you want to know... most of you probably know a lot about this and probably have seen it because it was a good movie. It was a good movie. And it won stuff. I think this woman right here won an Oscar for her role as Abilene Clark. But, yeah, I'm not going to read you the back of this. I'm not going to tell you too much about it. Because a lot of you already know what happens and all that. And I don't want to go into too much detail and ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen or read it. But I do recommend reading it before you see it, or just reading it. Next I'm going to talk about a book that I actually was forced to read. It was for summer reading a couple of years back. And it's called More Than You Know by Beth I always have trouble saying her last name. Beth Gutcheon. Yeah. But this is really good, actually. I feel like there's hair flying everywhere. Like, right there. Anyway, I'm going to actually read the back of this one because I don't remember too much what happened because I read this like a year ago. Or maybe even 2 years ago. This was 2 years ago. In a small town called Dundee, on the coast of Maine, an old woman named Hannah Gray begins her story by saying, Somebody said true love is like ghosts, which everyone talks about and few have seen. I've seen both, and I don't know how to tell you which one is worse. Hannah has decided finally to leave a record of the passionate and anguished long ago summer in Dundee when she met Connery Cracker, the town's bad boy and love of her life. This spare, piercing, and unforgettable novel bridges 2 centuries in 2 intense love stories as Hannah and Connery's fate is interwoven with the tale of a marriage that took place in Dundee 100 years earlier. Sorry. Loved this. It was like so good, and it made me want to read the next book I'm going to talk about, which is called Leeway, Cottage, and it's by the same woman, Beth Gutcheon. This is actually a whole lot better than this. And it's called Leeway Cottage. I think I just said that. But it's based in the 1940s, and it also is based in Dundee, Maine. So this woman actually has kind of like a fetish about Dundee. Just like always talks about it. It's in this book, and next book I'm gonna talk about. It's in the previous book. She just loves it, I guess, and it makes me love it. But it says in April 1940, as the Nazis marched into Denmark, Sidney Brand, a wealthy young of the I just can't read out loud very well. So a wealthy girl of the Dundee summer colony marries a gifted Danish pianist, Loris Moss. They believe they are well matched, as young lovers do. But Loris's beloved family in Copenhagen, Cottage to what the fortunes of Hitler's war will bring. By the time the war is over, Loris's family has played an active role. You guys just saw that, didn't you? I like spit all over the book. That was really gross. By the time the war is over, Loris's family has played an active role in Denmark's grassroots rescue of virtually all 7,000 of the country's Jews. Meanwhile, in America, Sidney has led a group of knitting for the war effort and had a baby, combining the story of one long American 20th century marriage with one of the most stirring stories of World War II. Leeway Cottage is a beautifully written tour de force of a novel, and I don't think I can say anything else without ruining it. It's really, really, really good, and I think that you should definitely read it. Actually, I think it could go both ways. It's unisexual. Men and women can read this, I think, because it does have a lot of. I learned a lot about World War II from reading this, and it was kind of going along with my history class, so it's kind of interesting. But I really, really liked this book because it had romance, it had things about the war, it was historical, it was tangible, like this seriously happened. Like, I don't know if it's a true story. I don't even think Dundee is an actual place, but because I read this book, it made me, it just like came over here and smacked me in the face. How rude. But because I read this, it made it a lot more real to me, and this is a really, really thick, awesome book. And there it is again with all this hair. I got really, really attached to the characters in this book. So Beth did an amazing job at I can't talk at all. At creating characters and all that. But brings me to the next one, which is kind of like a sequel to it. It's called Goodbye and Amen. I actually thought I would really enjoy this book because I really enjoyed Leeway Cottage, but I didn't really like this one too much. It was good, but not what I expected. It just kind of concludes everything. It's after the fact of what are their names again? Sydney and Loris. It's after the fact. It's like their children getting everything together for their like funeral and all of this stuff. So yeah, I do recommend reading this if you read this because it concludes the story essentially. It ends the story. So I do recommend reading it if you read Leeway Cottage. But this video has been super duper duper long, so thank you if you watched the whole thing, and if you didn't, you suck. But you won't know that I said that because you wouldn't have watched the whole thing, right? Okay, well, I seriously have just talked about books for 15 minutes. So, bye!